Welcome back, radio entrepreneurs, listeners, and fans. I'm producer Nathan Gobes, filling in for JDavis this morning. Very excited. I've got two of our venerable, esteemed reporters by my side, Marc Z of Marc Z Legal Staffing and Marc Furman of Tarlow, Hart Rodgers. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very
Hello,
much,
Nathan. Marc, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Happy New Year, Marc, and Happy New Year, Nathan. Hope you all the best in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Marc Furman, I've heard some reports that as we get into 2022, people are thinking about going rogue and running without their lawyer. And I hear you have some comments on that subject.
Well, Nathan and Marc, it's the beginning of a new year, and I just wanted to encourage business owners to think of their lawyers as a resource instead of as an expense. I mean, there is a reason that lawyers exist, and I'm amazed at the number of cases that I see where legal documents are done by the client without using a lawyer, or even worse, prepared by the opposing party and not running those drafts by your lawyer. And I think it comes from the idea that lawyers are an expense item, which they are, but the idea of running things by your lawyer, of course, is to save you from a situation where not everything is lovey-dovey, that things don't work out, there are unforeseen circumstances. So I'll just give a couple of examples. Experienced, sophisticated business person acquires a business, has acquired 30 businesses in the course of this business person's career. So makes a decision that this one can be acquired just using the same documents pieced together from past deals. And it did save several $1,000s at the outset. But the problem is that, piecing together the documents resulted in a deal that didn't make any sense in many ways. But among the ways there were 4 different agreements, each provided for a different law to apply, and each providing that should there be a dispute, it would be decided in a totally different place, using totally different procedures. So you ended up with a lawsuit in, call it Florida, an arbitration in Atlanta, an arbitration in Boston, and a lawsuit in the state or federal courts of a particular place in Massachusetts that had no state or federal court located in it. The end result was this multi-million-dollar dispute had to be litigated in pieces in 4 different places. And the end result, of course, was an enormous amount of legal fees to resolve the dispute. And for, let's call it $10,000, $15,000 dollars, it all could have been prevented. There are some useful things that lawyers do to kind of make sure the deal makes sense.
Right.
And in that particular situation, it didn't occur to the client, well, maybe we should check whether there's any liens on the business. And so after it hit the fan, it was discovered there were all sorts of liens on the business, including super priority liens, like tax liens.
Wow.
And so it was just a bad idea to do it yourself. And it costs the client an unimaginable amount of money to sort it all out after the fact.
Mark, can I just say something? You know, like, it reminds me, and we've always talked about with yourself, because you're one of the very best litigators there is, but your strength is, first and foremost, always been a good counselor. In other words, giving advice and helping clients prevent litigation and problems, being proactive. And I think that, like the old George Foreman expression, pay me now or pay me later, really does apply. And what's also interesting is, and I'm a recruiter staffing person with a legal background, but I always have advised people, even if you have a legal background, get the right support and advice to avoid the problems, that you're doing the right thing when you enter the path, as opposed to going in the path saying we have this just to be compliant, because that's when the issues come, and that's what you're talking about.
Right. And it's, I think there's sometimes a perception that lawyers are deal killers, that's why they exist, to kill deals. I mean, that's just not true. Lawyers are there to help you understand the risk associated with the deal, not to kill the deal, but so that you as the client can decide whether something is worth pushing back on or whether it's an acceptable risk. And most risks are acceptable, but there are some that are not, and it's important to know about them. I had a case where there was, an employment agreement, a new hire by a company, significant hire. And, there was a mutual understanding of, how compensation would work. And so in order to save money, the employee had his lawyer write the employment agreement. So, and, having the idea that, oh, well, all employment agreements are equal, the company just went ahead and signed it as presented. So there are, fundamental questions that employers care about as opposed to employees. Employees would like to have permanent employment that obligates the employer forever and has the most favorable compensation terms possible. But employers may want to, they may decide it's not a good relationship. And so, so a termination clause is an important thing. I
Right.
think every lawyer I know would want to make sure there's a reasonable termination clause. And if it's not at will, then you want to be very specific about what the term is. You don't want it to be ambiguous, whether there even could be a long term. So sometimes, people in their rush to make the hire, they're so excited to bring the person on, don't step back, show it to their lawyer, have a conversation about it. And it's so much better when I get the phone call, have an opportunity to look at the document and talk to the client. It's not a lot of money. Employment agreements are generally, no more than 8 pages long, and it doesn't take very long to read them.
Right.
And it doesn't take very long to advise a client about it. But to be presented after the fact with the agreement that's riddled with problems, you just kind of scratch your head and wish you had had the opportunity to prevent a problem, which would have been, I think, easy to do. Comes up in real estate transactions, corporate transactions, employment transaction, all sorts of situations that clients get involved in. And, as simple as, what are the terms and conditions if I order widgets from you? Well, there's laws about how it works if if I have a set of terms and conditions,
Right.
and I order something from you, but then you have a different set of terms and conditions. They're never the same, but what is typically the case is private business owners don't pay any attention to them until there's a problem.
Right.
Nobody wanted to look at their terms and conditions, I think, since the blizzard of '78, until COVID hit. And then it became, oh my God, well, what happens because the cost of these goods has increased in value by 500%. And if I supply them, I'm going to go out of business. What do I do? What are the rules? What's a force majeure? All these things nobody pays attention to for, 40 years. So anyway, use your lawyer for preventative law.
Mark, the other thing is just, going back is I think that as you say, now the new year is everybody's, and many companies and organizations are looking to obviously deals that they're doing or agreements that they're pursuing, just have their lawyer, like, yourself, you're transactional, you're giving advice, be part of it. Bring your lawyer into the fold, because as you say, first of all, you'll continue to have advice to avoid pitfalls, to be current in everything. And it's a reasonable cost of doing business, as opposed to, as you say, not only the cost later, but it's amazing what people will spend on other things, and they're avoiding using their lawyers. I know people over the holiday were telling me that they got injured, and I said, and they're not hearing back from, getting paid on time in terms of everything. I said, did you are you being represented? And they said, well, yes. I said, have you talked to your lawyer about advocating for you? So I think it's literally, it's the mindset. Again, if you can build in the pay me now or pay me later, preventative, and also a good lawyer, counselor like yourself can give continual advice, not only through the minefield, but what makes sense from business standpoint. The one thing I will disagree with you, there are lawyers that do kill deals, that they're, especially the in-house counsel sometimes, because they're really looking to advocate for the employer, or they're just trying to do their job to say, you paid me to tell you all the pitfalls. However, I know from yourself, and there are other very good people in different professions that really want the deal to happen, but want to make you protected. And if they speak to somebody like yourself, you can say, look, here's the issue, but here's how we can deal with that to make sure you're protected.
Yeah, I think that's all right. I think the mindset one has to have is of, what value do lawyers provide? What values do your other service providers provide? Your insurance advisor, your accountant. I mean, they're all an expense item, but they're there to help you make sure your books are in order in the case of accountants, that you have reasonable insurance coverage. That's another area the mindset gets to be, it's an expense. So let's get rid of product liability insurance because the rates have gone up. It's usually not a good idea, because I've defended those cases for uninsured businesses, including very serious cases. The insurance, so it's no different with these other advisors, is the mindset is what value are they providing? And it's not, many of us are not ignorant about business. I grew up in a business, a family business. I've been involved in managing our law firm for many years, and that's a business too. And we have insurance costs and accounting costs, and sometimes legal costs, and so like any other business. And we have leases and employment agreements and all those kinds of things that other business folks have. So it's just this mindset of seeing the value. And, I think it's a little, I think sometimes when the economy turns, I think the focus gets on cutting every place possible. But during the good times, sometimes people feel like no matter what they do, it's going to work out because the times are good.
They're
But
invincible. Yeah.
Despite your youthful appearance, Marc, unlike me, you're old enough to know that, the economy can turn and the good times don't always exist. And so in that you have to protect yourself against the downside too. Not every risk, but you have to identify, material risks and decide what you're comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about your business like a car, we all know about preventative maintenance. I don't think anybody out there would say, well, why spend the money on an oil change when I can just wait till it breaks down and deal with it then? So makes a lot of sense, Marc. I want to thank you guys both for joining. I'll start with you, Marc Furman. If people want to get in touch with you at Tarlow, Hart Rodgers, what's the best way for them to do so?
I can be reached at mfurman, Furman, at tbhr-law.com, or you can call my direct line at my office, 617-218-2025.
Great. It's the new year, and as you said, people are putting through new deals, new agreements, and they should be reaching out to people like you. Marc Z Legal Staffing, how can guests, viewers, and listeners reach you?
Well, Nathan, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this interview this morning with Marc. It's just a great way to start the new year and to hear what you have to say, because you're so right on topic in terms of really businesses really need good legal advice and just the value of good advice as a counselor that you provide and attorneys provide to businesses and individuals. I can be reached, first of all, Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C, and the letter Z will come right up. MarcZlegal.com, MarcZlegal.com, and 617-338-1300.
Thank you both. And of course, Marc and Marc's info and contact info can be found on the Radio Entrepreneurs website. If you're joining us on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. That really helps. And if you're joining through one of the podcast sites, subscribe to us on there. Every person helps immensely, so we can continue sharing content like this. Marc and Marc will both be joining us regularly throughout 2022, and we can't wait for more. So thank you both.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Marc. Happy New Year to you too. We'll be back with more stories after this break.